My name is Camilla Morelli. I am a social anthropologist and I recently completed a PhD at the University of Manchester. In this slideshow presentation, I will briefly introduce my research, which is based on a 40-month fieldwork with indigenous Matses children. The Matses are indigenous people living in Peruvian Amazonia. I specifically look at children's relations with and contributions to ongoing processes of social, economic, and environmental change. And in so doing, I want to address a major lacuna in the anthropology and ethnography of Amazonia, which have given little or no attention to Amazonian childhood. Whereas I argue that it is essential to consider Amazonian childhood in contemporary anthropology, not just because the statistics tell us that children and youth comprise the largest demographics of most Amazonian populations and other parts of Latin America, but also because I argue children do not just passively reproduce the world of the adults, but instead they play a key role in ongoing processes of social change. So it is necessary to look at children's perspectives if we are to better understand ongoing social processes in the Amazonian region and beyond. I especially consider how young Matses contribute to the increasing relevance of riverine environments and the progressive diminishment of forest knowledge and practices throughout different generations of Matses. A growing concern with the indigenous world of cities, concrete, and money in Matse society. And finally, how children contribute to emerging perceptions of poverty, inequality, and political exclusion amongst Matse's people. I use collaborative and visual methodologies, such as children's drawing, as you can see here, in order to grasp forms of knowledge that are not often put into words. So I try to explore what has been theorized in social sciences as the habitus by Bourdieu, or as the pre-objective by Sordas, or as Christina Thoren wrote as embodied cognition, and so forth. For instance, I distributed digital cameras to children in the field, and I used photographs that they take, such as this one here, which was taken by another boy and shows a boy canoeing on the river, because I want to examine types of knowledge that are generated through the moving body and sensorial engagement with the material surroundings. Especially, I want to explore how children develop sensorial engagement and affective relations with the riverine environment. Although Matse's children are now extremely skilled at all sorts of riverine activities, like in these photographs you can see a 6-year-old child who is extremely skilled at paddling. This photograph again was taken by another Matse's child. Only recently Matse's people have started engaging with the river, because until the 1970s, the Matses lived itinerantly and in isolation in the forest, and they avoided contact with other peoples, and they also avoided navigable rivers. So as a result, the now elderly Matses, who in their childhood stayed away from rivers, are now are now skilled at all riverine activities, but they still prefer the forest to the river, whereas Matse's children are actively refusing to engage with the forest, and they are developing affective relationships with the river through various activities like canoeing and fishing, but also, most importantly, through playing and through shared amusing activities together. So the photographs taken by the children open up different visual perspectives onto the riverine world. And they also can help explore how the children establish affective, emotional relationships with the river. And in so doing, I argue, and while also taking distance from the forest by refusing to engage with the forest world like all the Matses do, the children actively contribute to a process of change, and they contribute to how Matses' ways of relating to the environment and of attending to the world, for instance to the river as opposed to the forest, are changing between the generations and through time. I also use drawings to explore how children imagine and thereby engage with the world of cities at a distance from their forest villages, and in so doing contribute to a growing concern with the urban world amongst Matses people. So I propose a view of drawing as a method that draws on Heidegger's theory of knowing. And I suggest that drawing is not just a way of externalizing onto paper some already existing cognitive understandings, but instead drawing is a way of being there with the drawn entities, of engaging with them and of bringing them to life while investing them with meanings. For instance, in this drawing made by 6-year-old Paloma, Matz's girl, you can see the city of Iquitos, which is very remote from where Paloma lives. So Matz's villages are very remote from the city. It will take first 12 hours on a motorized canoe and then 2 hours on a plane, which is too expensive anyway to reach the city. So most children have never seen the city. And yet, in this drawing, Paloma is representing the city that she has never really seen, and she's drawing herself in the center of the drawing inside a car together with her mother as they travel around on a car in Iquitos, which is something that never really happened. And in this other drawing, Amatz's boy, Freddy, is representing himself in the city, walking out at night with electric light and on a concrete path. And both concrete and electric light are things that Matz's children really place value on. They really yearn for and desire, like they themselves say. But these things are not available in the forest villages. So here I suggest that drawing is at once opening up for the children the possibility to engage with a faraway elsewhere, what Vincent Crapanzano terms the hinterland of one's imagination. And so through drawing, the children can access realms of existence, imaginative realms of existence that lie beyond what is directly available to direct perception. But at the same time, through drawing and imagining the city and placing value on the city and all what the city has to offer, like electric light and concrete, television, running water and all these things, the children are learning to perceive themselves as poor and as lacking all these opportunities, as being not able to access all what the city has and the non-indigenous world in general have to offer. So I argue that by imagining the city and the non-indigenous world of money, concrete, electric light and so forth at a distance, the children are really developing what James Ferguson terms expectations of modernity. So a sort of desire for all the first-class things of the world, in this case concrete, manufactured goods and so forth, as this child is representing in this drawing here, where he portrays himself in a shop in a city and he points at fresh-baked bread, which is something that children love, but they obviously cannot easily access because there's no bread in their villages in the Amazon, but also because even if they were to travel to the city, bread is very expensive, and as the children say, we have no money. Pio kid need bure in Matz's language. So the children are developing this expectation of modernity, or better, these expectations of non-indigenousness, so to speak. But at the same time, they're also developing a sense of being unprivileged, a sense of being poor, of occupying a very marginal position in this huge globalized world. And these feelings of marginality and exclusion are exemplified by Matz's children's drawings of aeroplanes, because like this one here, because like the children themselves say, the aeroplanes from all over the world can reach the Amazonian region. But Matz's children and their parents as well could not think of travel to very far away places where indigenous people come from, because like the children are aware of and put into words, they have no money. So these feelings of being poor, of not being able to access all these things that the non-indigenous world has to offer, are very recent types of concept in Matz's society, because when the children's grandparents were themselves children, they lived in the forest and they did not know and they were not interested in the world, the non-indigenous world. So like they themselves recount, the world was very much limited to the forest. So the children are really contributing to this emerging perceptions of exclusions, of inequality, and therefore they really are, by coming to know the world in different ways and by desiring to live a life that is different from those of their elders, that is not just limited to the forest or the village, but that is open to their indigenous world, they really are effecting social transformation. Another aspect that I am interested in to explore is children's imagined futures. So I filmed a series of interviews asking children what they imagine that they will do, how they imagine they will work when they will be as old as their parents and grandparents. And these interviews really helped me to highlight how the children are expressing the desire to live a different life than their elders. In particular, because again, they do not want to engage with the forest very much, and they're not learning how to engage with the forest, or to collect medical plants, for instance, they're not learning how to hunt and so forth. But at the same time, unlike their parents and even more so their grandparents, the children really want to make money. They want to buy a lot of clothes that their grandparents did not even have when they were themselves children. And they want to travel to the city, and both boys and girls told me that they want to marry non-indigenous husbands and wives. So the children really are I look at how by developing new desires for the future, the children are setting up the conditions for important changes in Matse's society. So I have tried to emphasize the importance of children's desires, knowledge, imaginations, and views of the future through photographs that they take, through drawings, and also through these filmed interviews. These that you see here are captions from these filmed interviews about the future. And I argue that children's desire and imagination should not be, also their drawings and their knowledge and so forth, they should not be dismissed as playful, frivolous activities that are free of consequences. To the contrary, I try to discuss how the children really affect social change simply by developing new and original ways of knowing the world, which often implies a shift from the attitude, the knowledge, and the lifestyle of older generations. And this is why I believe that an attention to Amazonian childhood is crucial to contemporary anthropology and to understand ongoing social processes that are taking place in the Amazonian region, but that are also connecting the Amazonian region and its people to the rest of the world that we all inhabit.